afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the weekly webinar. I'm very glad to see you. Those of you who joined last week might remember that just before we got started, my laptop decided to quit for the day, and I had to scramble and find another way to bring the webinar to you. And so I think that mostly turned out okay. I'm very happy that I have a new laptop today and everything seems to be in working order. And so we can proceed. I would say as normal, but let's be super normal. Let's be even more wonderful than we normally are. Thank you for muting yourselves, and please feel free to use the chat while we're visiting today. I will keep my eye on that so our speaker can share her story. And then I think we will probably have time at the end for questions or comments when you can unmute yourselves. So keep that in mind. We are recording and the video will be available later today for future watching and sharing. If you need closed captioning, there is a button at the bottom of your screen that should say show captions. So feel free to click on that as you choose to. I think those are all of our typical housekeeping notes. So I'm going to introduce our speaker. And as I do that, I'm going to bring back to my screen some lovely photos of our speaker and her mom, Mama Mattie. And I'll tell you about our speaker, and then I will hand the mic over to her. All right, hopefully you can see these three lovely photos of two lovely ladies. On the left, we have Mrs. Mattie Thomas, and in the middle, we have Mrs. Mattie Thomas, and on the right, I don't know which one of these pictures is my favorite, but maybe the one on the far right with these lovely ladies in their beautiful, beautiful hats and their beautiful smiles. It's my pleasure to introduce to you all Mrs. Latanya Thomas Patton and her mom, Mrs. Mattie Thomas. And you can see that Mrs. Thomas was on Earth with us from October 13th, 1932 to March 29th, 2022. And during that time, Latanya was the caregiver for who I've heard her describe as her favorite girl. And every time I hear that, I just love hearing that. I understand because my mom and my grandmother are my favorite girls. And I am pretty sure I can relate to that level of love that Latanya has for her mom. Let me tell you a bit about our speaker for today. So Miss Mattie had Alzheimer's disease, and Latanya is going to share some of her story about that caregiving journey. Latanya's journey is shaped by her love and compassion for her mom and her caregiving. She is also a senior program manager at Washington University in St. Louis, which I have to mention is a fellow Alzheimer's Disease Research Center, just like KU is. And at Washington University, Ms. Patton shows a lot of service and leadership and community empowerment. She is also, along with me, a member of the board of directors for the Alzheimer's Association Heart of America chapter, and I'm proud to serve with her on that board. We are also both members of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and Mrs. Patton is a wonderful, wonderful, hardworking servant to that organization, which provides scholarship and sisterliness and service to our communities. And I could just go on and on, but the best person to tell her story is Latanya herself. So welcome to the weekly webinar, Mrs. Latanya Thomas Patton, and I will turn the talk over to you.
Well, thank you, Kelly, and hello, everyone. It is a pleasure to see each of you. I am delighted to have this opportunity to talk about my best girl. And when we're done with our talk here, you'll understand why. I've done some important things in my life, but I can honestly tell you one of the most important things that I had the privilege of doing, and that was to taking care of my mother. You see, Mattie Thomas was a strong, firm, but could be gentle and caring. Growing up in our house, she made our house a home. I was raised in a home that every week had a freshly made dessert. And for those bakers, you'll understand. There was always a cobbler, a cake, a cookie, a brownie. There was a cinnamon roll. There was something in our home, and everybody loved coming there. But she prided herself on holding our home together. And I should mention that I am an only child. This very talented cook, award-winning baker, made my life as a child just amazing. I couldn't have asked for a better parent. She was supported by her love of her life, Leon Thomas, who was my dad. And my dad unfortunately passed away in 2002 to prostate cancer. But you know, during that time, my mother and I cared for him until he finally succumbed to the disease. And I honestly believe that that was the start of her journey with Alzheimer's disease, because within 6 months of my father's passing, she lost her mother. And it was a sudden death. She had not been ill or anything. She had a massive heart attack and died. And I think it really took its toll on my mother. But as I was sharing with you, you know, my mother was famous for mac and cheese and peach cobbler, and people would come from miles around. The church folks would always ask for it, neighbors would ask for it. Anybody that had the privilege of tasting her food, they would always make a second request. You see, this amazing wife, mother, grandmother, Nana, mother in law, big sister, Christian, was a mentor and friend to many. She, before Alzheimer's disease, she was lively, she was witty, she always had a comeback. No matter what you had going, she had a reason for it, and she could always give you the best advice. You know, I understand why Alzheimer's disease is referred to as the long goodbye. It's not like flipping a switch and it's over, but it's literally watching someone fade out of focus little by little. You know, we know that Alzheimer's disease is a brain disorder that slowly destroys the memory, thinking skills, and eventually the ability to carry out simple tasks. There's no cure, unfortunately, but I'm praying that there will be a day that there will be a cure. You know, it's no way of stopping it, only treatment. And I know that I'm speaking to the choir here, at best, will slow the progression. But no textbook, no medical examination can prepare you to feel and to live alongside Alzheimer's disease. I can remember when I noticed early on that there was something different about my mother. She would start forgetting things like to turn off the water or to change her clothes. She would wear the clothes that she'd had on the previous day. And of course, you know, I would say to her, well, hey, what's going on with you? And she would always attribute it to getting older. And of course, we would laugh about it. But honestly, it was no laughing matter. But at many occasions, I had to laugh to keep from crying. You know, she would ask the same question over and over and over and over again, or she would tell you the same fact over and over and over again. And I would say, honey, you've already told me that. And then something, the light bulb went off in my head and said, just pretend you're hearing it for the first time, every single time that she would share it. So I did. And I was able to navigate a very long, strenuous journey with Alzheimer's disease with my mother. See, despite having Alzheimer's disease, I had to still respect the tradition and cultures of being raised in a family that valued those things. I had to explain to her, even if she did not understand what was happening. I unfortunately had to become her parent, and it was probably one of the hardest things that I've ever done in my whole life. When I had to tell her that she could no longer drive. And not only did I tell her she couldn't drive, I had to take the keys and I had to sell the car. Because you see, she would get in it and she was going somewhere. I don't know where she was going, but she was going somewhere. And I had to say to her, honey, I can't let you do that. I'm concerned about your well being. And she would say, huh, what are you concerned about me for? I can take care of myself. And she would often tell me that I wasn't the boss of her. Well, you know, to some degree, I wasn't. But it was that day that I did become her boss. And I had to explain to her, remember that document that you signed years ago? That made me in charge of you. And that and it was my privilege to take care of her. You know, one Sunday at church, she loved going to church, and that was our favorite thing to do together. And one Sunday in church, she saw a lady that walked past her and she actually hit her. And I said, you can't do that. And she said, I didn't do anything. And she would debate with me about things that she would do. And so one day I actually had to stand up in church and very painfully share that this woman that they had known forever, who was an amazing person, had Alzheimer's disease, and that the disease had taken over her memory. And a lot of times she could carry on a conversation, but about 30 seconds in, you knew that there was something going on with her. One of my most um, things that I think that I've learned through my journey with Alzheimer's disease, she and I were actually watching TV one day. And as I sat watching TV, she was watching me. And she said to me, "Hey, you always got that thing." Well, first of all, it alarmed me that my mother said thing. You see, she didn't use slang at all. And I kept thinking to myself, what is the thing? It baffled me. I was just in awe on what the thing was. Well, what she was telling me is that because I always had my computer, my phone, my laptop, that while I was physically there, I wasn't present. And I learned a life lesson as a result of that. And so I could go on and on and on and tell you many, many stories about my best girl, but I will tell you this, that it was my privilege to take care of her and to learn as much as I could about Alzheimer's disease and to be support for someone else that's going through this journey. So, Kelly, I think I'm all done here.
Oh, goodness. So lovely. Thank you, Latanya, so much. I love that story. I love hearing about the love that you have for your mom. I'm going to turn my face on after I wipe a tear or two away, because that was so moving. Thank you. And it reminded me of my own experience with one of my best girls, my grandmother. So thank you. I want to tell you all a few more things about why I invited Latanya here today. Well, you probably can tell why I invited her. What a story she has. What a demonstration of love and dedication and so many wonderful things. But also, and I'll get to the questions in the chat in just a moment. I want to tell you that I titled today's topic My Mama Mattie because Latanya is talking about her Mama Mattie. But also because it corresponds with our big event this weekend. I think a lot of you know about it. I recognize a lot of your names who are signed up to attend with us tomorrow at the Dementia Training Room and Saturday at our movie. So tomorrow is the Dementia Training Room. We'll be at the Matt Ross Community Center at 8101 Marty, just west of Metcalf, talking about strategies and tips and help for people who are caring for someone experiencing a lot of what Latanya talked about with her best girl. So we'll have stations where you can learn about what to do when someone won't take a bath. I'll be your friendly host for that one. We'll have a table that talks about legal issues, when dementia isn't Alzheimer's disease, how to manage anxiety and depression. And when I say anxiety and depression, I mean in the person with the disease and in the caregiver, because we know that those things happen quite a few times. We have loads and loads of topics. You can come anytime between 9 and 3. If you're coming later in the day, make sure you come enough before 3 to give yourself time to visit all the topics because we do have a hard stop at 3. We'll have lots of information from the ADRC and from other community resources. So that's Friday. And then Saturday, we are having a screening of the movie called My Mama Joe, Hope and Help. And that is a movie about a mama who is as important to her family as Latanya's mom was to hers. They're a family that lives in St. Louis, and their mom was a community hero. She was always giving and serving and loving people. And then she got Alzheimer's disease. And I know so many of us remember that moment when someone we love got that diagnosis and we thought, well, but why me? How could this happen? And the truth is we don't want this to happen to anyone. Nobody deserves to have Alzheimer's disease. And some of the most wonderful people in the world, like Miss Mattie and my Mama Joe in the movie, and my grandmother Grace, and lots of people get this diagnosis, and we are called to a journey that we didn't really want to be on. And one way, I think, one of the best ways to get through that journey is to ask for help, and to go to movies, and to show up at the training room. So we want you to come to the movie on Saturday. The movie is called My Mama Joe. It's about 1 hour long. If you've noticed my background, I have a movie reel and some purple in the background because I'm promoting this movie. It will be at the Glenwood Arts Theater on 95th and Mission Road. And so it's at 4 o'clock on Saturday. I'll put some links in the chat because even though I am doing a commercial for these events tomorrow, the point of today's webinar is to have the space to hear Latanya's story and to have your questions. So I'm going to pivot back to the chat. I'm going to read the questions out. The first one is we have a comment that you have a beautiful story. I agree. And the question is, although we don't have any cure yet, we do have approved and investigational drugs to slow progression. That is 100% true. And the question, I think, for you, Latanya, is did you and your mom use any of these resources?
So the short answer is no. My mother was, despite having the disease, she was very adamant about medications, for example, and she unfortunately had some other chronic illnesses like diabetes, and she was insulin dependent. And she got to that place where she wasn't willing to not even take diabetes medication, let alone any other kind of medication. The doctor had recommended that we participate in a clinical trial. And my mother's response to me was, "You're not going to make me a guinea pig." So that let me know that at least for that moment, she was there and understood. So I did not avail myself to any of those resources, but I must share, I have an incredible support system. I have an amazing husband and children and some best friends and my church friends and my sorority sisters. And so I had a lot of support, which allowed me those few moments sometimes that I needed to just have a good cry, because I had many of those, but I did not. And I wish that I had, looking back, and I probably would have, but I respected her wish and did not.
Thank you, Latanya. And if I can just add to that, I think that is so lovely that you respected your mom's wish because, even though she had this diagnosis, she's still a person with dignity and her own individuality and her own self-determination, and she chose how she wanted to manage this, and you respected that, and I think that's beautiful. I think it's also beautiful that as we have learned more about this disease over the past 20, 30, 100 years, we have more information, we have more drugs. 25 years ago, we weren't talking about blood tests for Alzheimer's disease, and we weren't talking about medications that can change the biology and the biomarkers of the brain. So lots of people who had this disease didn't even have the option of taking medication. And now people do, and now people can make an informed decision about whether to take or not take medication. I'm biased at the KUADRC. I think participating in research is a good idea, especially to help address some of those concerns that people like Miss Mattie might have had. Oh, I don't know if I want that. Well, the way we can figure out if you want that is by doing research. So thank you for that question. I think that was a great one, and what a lovely answer. Next question is, did you use or know of any agency that cares for your loved one if you just need a couple of hours to do something, can't take your loved one with you, that you're caring for? So this questioner is asking about respite care, and I'll ask Latanya to share any thoughts you have about that.
I think that first of all, self-care for the caregiver is paramount. It is incredibly important. And if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of your loved one. But there are a couple of agencies. There is a 1-800 number, and I'm sure Kelly will share that number, a hotline number that you can certainly tap into, call. And you're indeed talking about respite care. There are a couple of daycares, well, care centers. People, even though you have Alzheimer's disease, you don't want to be called or thought of as being a kid. And so when you would say the word daycare, so I was very conscious of things that I said to my mother, because again, she was 89 years old when she passed away, and she was very much in there at times, and she would know exactly what I was talking about. And then there were times that she just simply did not. But I think there are some resources that are available, and certainly the Heart of America chapter can be a great resource as well. There's some brochures and pamphlets, and there's some things online that you can certainly utilize.
Perfect. I'm just typing. One thing that will never leave my memory, I think, even if I get Alzheimer's, is the 1-800 number for the Alzheimer's Association. It's been the same since at least 2001. And that's in the chat, 1-800-272-3900. They are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because of course we know Alzheimer's disease exists 24 hours, 7 days a week. So you can talk to them anytime. The way their phone system used to work, I don't know if this is still the case, is that somehow when you call, it knew where you were calling from. And so you could get some local resources. So if you're calling from a 913 area code, it would give you 913 resources. Of course, the world is different now, and you can have a 913 area code and live in Hawaii. And if you do, I'm jealous. But so I'm not sure if that's how it works anymore. But you can, when you call that number, you can say, I'm calling from such and such a place, and I need information about this other place. I know we have folks that watch our webinar who are not necessarily in Kansas City. So I want to make sure you know that that helpline is available to everyone. And then I'm also putting in the chat the link to eldercare.gov. And eldercare.gov is a nationwide resource. You can go in and put any zip code in, and it will tell you what's available in your zip code or your loved one's zip code, including options for, as our person asked, respite care, adult day services, long-term care, support groups, all kinds of things. So I encourage you to take a look at that as soon as I press send on this chat here, which I guess I can do now because it's ready. Nope, it's not. Hold on, I got to press the send button. Okay.
This Eldine, can I talk?
Yes, of course.
Okay, I put a kind of a strong statement on the comment board about. I think that I am 92. Remember this, so I'm talking.
Yes.
I'm talking from this age. Is that I am convinced that in caring for my wife, the biggest mistake I made was trying to correct her. If she doesn't want to eat, don't put feeding tubes. Don't do anything to artificially do that. And like with the insulin, because if they don't want to take the insulin, see, this is probably the only thing they have left. And that's their right to die comfortably. And that's a hard, tough one for us to take. We want to keep them all the time. But my wife died in 16, and her death was a blessing to her. And it's been a blessing to me because I have been able to live a full life since her death. So she blessed me in death by dying peacefully and on time the way she wanted to. And I think that's something for us. I think that right to die is probably the last right they have when push comes to shove. That's pretty strong stuff, I know, because we want to keep them alive as long as we want to. But I think dementia, Alzheimer's, is a new ball game for that. If they want to die, let's let them die. Okay? Is that too
It's
tough?
so important. Yeah. No, that's not too tough. I think it's so important to remember that we still have a person who has wants and needs and capacity. That's a word I was trying to think of sooner. Even though their capacity over time is going to change with this diagnosis. But that's why it's so crucial that we do things like advanced directives and powers of attorney, and we have conversations as much as possible before we get news that we have a diagnosis of dementia, so that we can talk about what is it that you want. It's why early detection and diagnosis are so important. We want to maximize that early stage of the disease when the person can really fully participate in a conversation about, I do or don't want medications, I do or don't want end of life measures. Let's talk about where I'm going to live, and so on and so forth. So, Mr. Holtis, I think you're right on by sharing your experience with your wife. And, you know, every time I see, I think, I hope I can grow up to be 92, just like Mr. Eldine Holtis. So thank you for mentioning that.
I just want to say that we did have the right to die, the medical power of attorney, and a durable business power of attorney. Those are three distinct documents that everyone's on here. If they don't have one, they ought to make an appointment. They ought to make an appointment tomorrow to start working on it and get their children on board and all of that. My children know exactly what to do, what I would want to do when I'm at death's door. And it's not their decision. I have made my decisions about my life. When it's no longer viable, let me die. Okay?
I agree with you. We
Thank you.
also had that conversation far before my mother ever had Alzheimer's disease. So I was real clear on what she wanted to do, but I just refused to try to insist that she take insulin or any medication. And I had to let her live on her terms. And I had to be okay with that. And let me tell you, I'm a person of faith. And so I leaned into my faith and I asked God to please give me the strength to allow that to allow her to do things on her own terms despite having the disease. And so we actually had, towards the end of her life, we had an in-home hospice. And so I had a horrible experience with hospice, and I would personally would not recommend it, but I know that some people need it. So the doctor told me that I needed support at home. Well, he didn't know me, and he didn't know the support I already had. But anyway, we went down the road for maybe a couple of weeks with hospice. Well, I had requirements, and I said, don't send anybody that had not been vaccinated. Don't send anybody that's not used to working with seniors. Don't send, so I had all these things with the hospice center, and I was telling them, don't send, well, they sent just the opposite, someone that had not, and I was just so fearful. I give my mother COVID and she passed away, and I did not want that. So I wasn't going to allow someone else either. But towards the end, the day actually, well, actually maybe 3 days before she actually passed, we went to the hospital because she was in so much pain. And so the hospice director was to come that afternoon. And so I called and I said, don't come because we're going to the hospital. And she said, you can't do that. And I looked and I looked at I had to look at the phone, and I said, I told you from the beginning, I'm in charge here and I make the decisions for Mattie Thomas. I know she belongs to me. She doesn't belong to you. And so I was very stern. They got a little bit mad with me, but it was my decision because I knew that what she wanted. And they would send somebody that would just come in and start taking her blood pressure. I'm going, no, 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 don't do that. Ask her if it's okay to take her blood pressure or take her temperature or what have you. There is still a person there. And by golly, you were going to respect that. So I respect your decision to have, and you have to have those things in place. I know people don't want to talk about end of life. People don't want to talk about death. People want to go to heaven, but they don't want to die. But you have to ensure that people know your wishes and that they're willing to abide by them. Because some people are, well, no, I'm not going to do that. If the person wants, for example, wants to be cremated, oh, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to bury them. Well, you're not doing what they've asked you to do. If they've asked you not to, you're just really putting yourself through a whole lot of misery that you don't really need.
Yeah, beautiful. Wow, thank you so much. I hope we've gotten to everybody's comments in the chat, and I hope you'll see I put the information for our 2 events in the chat. Although at this point, folks, if you want to show up tomorrow for the training room or the movie on Saturday, just come on over. Come on out.
Yes,
We'll be happy to
please.
see you.
Come on over. We'd be happy to see you.
Yes, we are so excited. In case I didn't make it clear, LaTanya is going to be at the movie with us on Saturday, and we'll be available to have more of this kind of conversation. Dr. Jeffrey Burns will be with us. Many of you know him as the co-director of our Alzheimer's Disease Research Center, and we're very excited that he will join us. I had a wonderful conversation with him yesterday. There was a reception here on campus. He and Dr. Russell Swerdlow have been named University Distinguished Professors. This is quite an honor. And apparently, I don't know how many professors are in the KU Medical Center universe. I'm sure there are thousands, but only 100 of them have the designation of University Distinguished Professor. And so 2 of them are in our world at the ADRC. I think that's fantastic. So I was talking with Dr. Burns yesterday, and he has not seen the Mama Joe movie yet. He says, I'm going to come and I'm going to be excited and I'll be there afterwards. And he says, now, what kind of movie is it exactly? And I thought, I wonder what he means. What do you mean, what kind of movie it is? And I said, well, it's the story of a family that their mom has Alzheimer's and they take care of their mom. And it's kind of like the Y movie that we did. And he said, oh, yeah. So you're saying it's a documentary? Yeah, it's a documentary. It's a love story. It's beautiful. And I'm in it talking about, Alzheimer's and Medicare. And he says, well, I knew you were in it, Kelly, but you're telling me you're in this documentary. I thought this was like an acting movie. I thought you were playing a dramatic role. And I was so touched by that because I'm quite flattered that Dr. Burns thinks I could be an actor in a movie, like a movie. And I'm even more honored to be in a movie that's about Alzheimer's disease. So Dr. Burns will be seeing the movie for the first time on Saturday, just like many of you. So you can have that in common with him. And we're really looking forward to having you there. I see a few more comments in the chat. I just want to make sure I'm not missing everything. I see a question about whether the training room will be repeated. Yes, although most likely it will not be until 2026. This is something we put on annually. I would love to do it more often. It is quite a production. I don't know if my colleague Jan is still on here, Jan Horn is one of the ringleaders. Oh, I see her there. Jan Horn is one of the ringleaders of the dementia training room, and I'm sure she's probably shaking her head wildly. No more than once a year, because it is quite a project. So this is really your chance for 2025 to come to the training room. And probably, Monday we'll start working on the 2026 training room. So stay tuned to my alliance for when that is. As for the Mama Joe movie, I would like for you to know and believe that this one chance that you have is this Saturday. But the truth is, we are hoping to have it air some other times. But if you're available this Saturday, it's not going to be thundering or raining or snowing or anything. It might be hot, and you can come inside the movie and have a free movie and some popcorn and soda. Am I selling this yet? So come on inside on Saturday if you would like to. And we will tell you after Saturday how you might be able to see it another time. I agree with the comment about Jan Horn being amazing. She is amazing. I've known Jan since our Alzheimer's Association days, so I can confirm that she is amazing. I got a message that I think was meant for you, Latanya, that says, "I'm so sorry about your hospice experience. I think this might be in response to when you said, 'Don't do this to my mom,' and they did it anyway." And it says, "I worked for a hospice company and we put patient and family wishes first," which I'm glad to hear. I have been lucky to have great experiences with my patient care. So I think those patient care experiences improve when we speak up, for our best girls. When they can't speak, we have to. So thank you. I'm glad that everybody is finding that useful. I want to make sure I didn't miss any questions. I think we had a question about the Alzheimer's Association. We are on the board of directors for the local chapter of the Alzheimer's Association, which is part of a national network of Alzheimer's associations. Our board meets, is it monthly, Latanya? It feels like we're always meeting. So we meet not enough.
I think it's bi-monthly.
That's right. We meet enough to help address these questions and issues. So there's a little information about them. They will be with us at the movie on Saturday, so you can get some information about the association then. We are once again, unsurprisingly, out of time. Latanya, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank
the
you.
list of things I owe you is longer than anything. You collect anytime. I'm collecting from you on Saturday. You didn't owe me anything, but I'm collecting from you on Saturday. I look forward to seeing all of you next week. Next week, our topic is about our hot tub study, Fight AD. And we're going to talk about how maybe the heat from a hot tub is good for your brain health. So dial in to that. And I did also want to mention, I know some of you might be watching this and you're not in Kansas City and you can't get to the training room. And I apologize about that. We don't have a way to make it available virtually yet, but we do have lots of resources that we can share. So keep in touch with us and we'll make sure you get what you need. All right, Latanya, make sure you see all the beautiful comments in the chat. And I will leave it up for just a moment because I'm going to read them through. But we'll dismiss everybody if you don't have to hang on. Hope to see you tomorrow and Saturday and next Thursday and all the other times. Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. Again, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. I think I can save this chat. I'm going to email this to you, Latanya, because you should know how much people appreciated this. And I'm going to go ahead and end us so I can upload this recording, and we'll see you Friday and Saturday. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.